Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to paint their door a vibrant shade of blue. Others have the need to decorate their bathroom with fish, anchors, and other nautical items. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.
My name's Adelle Onyango, and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Hey you, welcome to episode 311. Thank you so much for being part of this family. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, welcome. Audio episodes like this go out every single Monday. We have another show called The Midweek Tease out on Wednesday. And on Friday, you have Ask a Therapist, which is a show that you can send in questions and therapists come through and answer your questions. Yeah, we love wellness here. And speaking about hair and wellness and all things mental wellness, this is what's coming up in this episode.
When our beloved Jerry was diagnosed with bipolar, we had never heard of the word or the disease. We never knew what we were doing. We never knew what that was. And it came suddenly. And my daughter said she was hearing voices in the hallway, and she started running in from the house because she wanted to run away from the voices, but they wouldn't leave her. I remember my beautiful girl. She was a very small, tiny girl, very sweet. I remember one time we were sitting at the table and she said to me, "Mommy, I'm not a bad person. Why am I suffering so much?" I told her, "Honey, you're not a bad person at all. As a mother, you want to take all her pain and all that suffering and transfer it to yourself, but you can't." One day, actually, the man who contributed to her birth called me from here because he used to travel here for business all the time and goes, "By the way, can you ask," he always called her your daughter, not his daughter or our daughter. "Can you find out what is going on with your daughter? She's talking about killing herself."
That is why Dharambudia, part one of her story, is coming up a little later in this episode. Yo, I am experiencing something different. Something I haven't experienced before. So on Friday, this past week, I premiered my first ever film, Home. Of course, if you missed the premiere, I will be sharing details on how you can catch it in Kenya, and if you're not in Kenya, where you can catch it online. Those details will come when I'm ready. But I experienced so much love from people I didn't know had that much love for me. And I'm going to try and get through this without crying, but perhaps I do need a good cry. I mean, I had one friend, and we actually don't know each other well, but we're intending to get to know each other well. And he and I met on a set of a interview I was at. He was one of the camera people, and we just hit it off. I think because the music he was playing was completely the type of music I loved. But back to the premiere, he literally was on his way home and he passed by at the end of the event just so that he could congratulate me. Whew, right? I had a girlfriend who has such a pure heart come through and was just so encouraging. One of my closest friends came through as well. My favorite person in the world, who is also the producer of this film. He gave his all to make sure it ran smoothly and that I was calm. I caught myself the day after the premiere thinking about the people I had invited who didn't come, and thinking about the people I would have invited a couple of years ago who, because our relationships had evolved to a point that we're not as close as we used to be, so I didn't invite them. Yeah, I caught myself being like, oh man, that's a bit sad, isn't it? And then I was like, oh, hang on, I do not have time for regret when I have so much love around me that I didn't even realize that I had. And I have so much love within me as well. Man, I'm just sharing this because I know the older we get, I was listening to a podcast that was talking about how friendships and relationships change as we grow older. Sometimes people you were close to are now not close to you anymore. And you can get stuck in the rut of feeling sad about it, or even feeling like a victim in the situation. And if you are experiencing this or something similar to this, let this podcast be a reminder to focus on the love that is all around you instead of focusing on the places where there is no love. I am so loved and I'm just so thankful, you know? Like some of the love is from complete strangers. Yeah, sometimes we are socialized to believe that love and companionship and friendship and support only comes from specific spaces. It doesn't. It's all around you. It is all around you. It can come from complete strangers. I mean, one of the ladies who came for the premiere, I interviewed her once a long time ago, and that's why she came. That's why she came. Man, don't waste time and energy focusing on the spaces where you don't feel loved or seen. There's so many other spaces that see you and that love you. And I think I'm just emotional. Like I've literally felt emotionally overwhelmed the entire weekend because of just accepting the overflow of love. So it's like overwhelmed, but like a good type. Whew, I made it through. I didn't burst into tears for you. Okay, progress. The other thing I'll tell you before we dive into part 1 of Waithĩra's story is this is probably your last chance to join us for group therapy this Saturday. Yeah, the 1st of March. We are officially kicking off therapy. And this time around, it's 3 sessions you're signing up for that are going to make you arrive so much better in your intimate relationships. Now, I want to share something that's probably very personal, but anyway, here goes. I have found that the more work I've done on myself, I show up much better, not only for me, but also in my intimate relationship. And showing up better doesn't necessarily mean the ways I show up for my partner. It also means the way I advocate for my needs. It also means I communicate a lot better. I had a recent situation where something very menial happened and it triggered an insecurity. And instead of letting my ego take over, I immediately said, it's okay, I'm having this insecurity, right? Like I'm insecure about ABCD. Like I was very clear about it. And he said, yeah, it's okay. That would not have been the case years ago. Years ago, my ego would have taken over. I'd have thrown a tantrum. I'd have silent treated the situation for like a couple of days. Instead of just saying, hey, I'm having a very human moment. and I think it's okay, right? And just that one sentence meant that even my partner wasn't racking their brains trying to understand, what did I do wrong? No one did anything wrong. I was just having a very human experience. I've also had a situation where I was communicating emotions I was feeling, and I don't think my partner was understanding. I wasn't deeply communicating it. I was just saying, hey, I'm nervous. They assumed that I meant that as a negative emotion I was experiencing. I said it twice and they'd be like, no, there's no reason for that. No. Brushing the emotion off. And then I said, hey, when I say I'm nervous, I don't mean it negatively. I mean, I care about this thing and I'm just feeling very proud and emotional that it's gotten here. And then he said, oh, okay, got it. So I have seen how...
Looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play at the store, play at home, play when you're bored. Play today for your chance to win and get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience social gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now to play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Therapy has impacted positively my intimate relationship in how I show up for my partner, but in how I communicate and how I advocate for my needs. Because that's a big one. When you don't advocate for your needs, even though you know you haven't done it, it builds resentment. And that's never good for a relationship. So I really hope you can make it to group therapy. We have 40% of the tickets left, and we have until Thursday this week for you to grab your tickets. So the ticket portal closes on Thursday. If I were you, I would grab my tickets as soon as you hear this. So it's going to be 3 sessions. The first one is on the 1st of March. We teamed up with Shamiri Health for this. And we're going to be looking at building healthy boundaries in relationships, red flags, misalignment in relationships when it comes to your values, healing past traumas that are affecting your relationship. And the big one, what in the world is your attachment style? And how can we make it a lot more secure? I think this is going to also be an opportunity for us to spark friendships amongst us as a community here at Legally Clueless. So grab your ticket, come through. There's a link in the show notes to where you can buy your ticket. And tickets are 3,000 bob. And once you grab that ticket, you come for all of the 3 sessions. Okay, let's dive into Waithĩra's very incredible story. The story was recorded by one of our correspondents, Caleb, but I happened to pass by and meet Waithĩra, whose energy is just everything. And I love hearing from women from older generations because there is a freedom they have that I think a lot of us keep ourselves from, but a lot of us could be inspired by. But her story touches on quite a few things, one being the loss of her daughter. 100 African stories on Legally Clueless. Stories from Africa.
My name is Waithĩra Budia Protano. I am Kenyan, of course. I grew up in various places in Kenya. When I was born, we were living in those very, very old regional places. Ours was Shura in Kabete. And then when I was about 6 years old, my father bought a farm in Mushada, where we stayed for around 4 years. Then following Kenya's independence, my father bought another farm in Molo. Following independence, I was when we moved to Molo, about 11, 12 years old. My father was an educator and a teacher, and who taught all kinds of schools all over Kabete. And he was also a businessman, obviously. So when we moved to Molo, my mother did not tolerate that altitude, that high altitude very well. It's very high altitude. It was such a lovely, beautiful place. Whoa. I think I also became a writer because I am the baby of 14 children. And as such, I was the family mascot. I entertained, I sung, and I told stories, and I got paid. Mangotore, mangotore, those big shillings. They were big shillings they used to have. And I would entertain all my older siblings, friends when they came. I would dance, I would sing. But in Molo, when you have many children, parents assign the children, the older siblings. My older siblings were like my aunts and my uncles, frankly, because we were so distant in age. I had an older sister who had gone to London. This was in 1960. She got married actually I had 3 siblings get married in 1964, one after another. This couple, this particular sister, 65, she immediately went to England after she got married. So after they came back, after a couple of years, he came back. I'm the baby, so I used to be like pulled everywhere. My older siblings wanted me to go and say. So my sister had me go now in Muguga from Molo, where I stayed with them after they came back from London. And I went there for 6 and 7. I finished. I went to Nairobi Girls Secondary School, which is now Moi, in Woodley. And now, by that time, my father had started buying real estate. So we already had real estate in Nairobi. And one of the earliest places when it was new, when we moved, is Jamhuri Estate, near Kenya Science. So I was in boarding school, and I really refused to stay in boarding school. I used to run away all the time because my father still would be in Molo, and my mother was there. And so when he came he would find me and say, "Why aren't you in school?" Because my father believed girls should be in boarding school to avoid any temptations in high school. And my mother, once after I had run away so many times, my mother said, "She's my last born, let her stay." First of all, mind you, it was a stone throw from my high school to my home. And I was in boarding school. I wasn't having it. In any event, following graduation, I think it was 6 months after graduation, I went to America from high school. So I have been there since then. But I had a brother, again late, and my beautiful brother, Musharuito, may his soul rest in peace, he used to call me Waithĩra. Waithĩra, don't ever, ever forget Kikuyu, okay? So when I made our first, trip here, I lost my mother, unfortunately, almost immediately after I went there. So that was bad. But when I came here, I bought a Kikuyu dictionary, English, Kikuyu, English, Swahili, English, Swahili. And the 200, the 200 proverbs in Kikuyu? I memorized everything. You cannot, I know deeper Kikuyu. Everybody marvels, even my oldest. Where did you learn this? Well, you grew up in the city, you have been in America forever. Where did you? I say, because I love my language. I love my I think Kikuyu and all African languages are beautiful. We are, a lot of indigenous, mostly non-white, especially African languages, are disappearing fast. And we have to keep them alive. To ask people what is Mereveta at their place and find almost no one who knows what Mereveta means, it's really scandalous if you're a Kikuyu. Mereveta, poetry. It was just too much fun in the 70s, when I arrived in America in the 70s. Many people, Africans, went there in the 60s. There was so much fun. It was the hippie time. Lots of drugs. Lots and lots of drugs. My brother lived next, I went to California first. My brother lived at a place called Berkeley, and next to a place called People's Park. That's where all the hippies gathered, and boy, did I laugh. And my brother was so protective because he knew he was a very, very fun guy. So he was not going to, he used to protect me. These older women would come. I remember one time there is a place called Parato. And this woman was living there. There were a lot of Kikuus there. They called it Kiambu. And she had gone early with my son. Let me take your little sister to to this party. My mother said, no, you never taking my little sister anywhere. She begged, and I finally went. What I saw there will stay in Palo Alto. But I say, actually, it was not a good experience. Maybe I should say it because it can teach people how not to be. I was very naive, and my brother knew what it was going on. Again, it was a very free place, time for drugs and stuff. And really, my ancestors were watching over. We have never been one to be enticed by drugs and alcohol. My only, really poison was, I was addicted to cigarettes, which I quit, thank God. I was a chain smoker. That was my only drug. While I was there, that woman was living with this very tall white American, and they used to have to grow marijuana on the farm. And dropping acid at the time was a very popular thing, acid. And evidently, they dropped us. When I came in, you couldn't see through. If you went to parties, you can't see through the room, like smoke, like reefer. And of course, it wasn't legal then. Now it is legal all over most of the states, actually. So she dropped a Mickey in my drink. I was very young. Remember, I turned actually 18 in America. The next thing I knew, I was in an emergency. And my brother wanted to kill that woman. I was in an emergency room.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
I never touched drugs ever in my life. I don't think that was the reason why that thing scared me so much. But sometimes my daughter calls me control freak. I don't like not to. You know how girls sometimes will drink or whatever on a date and lose themselves and then something happens. I've never wanted to lose control. I don't like to lose control, not to know what is going on. That's why sometimes I can't believe I fly. I like to be in the control. So that is a positive thing for me. I never succumb to drugs. And I know a lot of people who succumb to drugs, and they are not alive, most of them, or their lives were completely ruined. They never ended up going to college or to school. So my entanglement, I like to call it, occurred actually when I was about 16 years old, before I left this country. The person, if you're listening, he almost ruined my life, was 10 years older than me. Was actually going to graduate school, and I was in second year of high school. When he met me near the market, I was with my older sister, and he focused on me like a hyena. What's your name? He was living against the pole, right? Looking quite sexy. He's also one of those people. He's looked incredibly young. Still did for a long time. I don't know now. I haven't seen him for a long time. But he was wearing a jeans jacket and leather brown boots, cowboy boots, and jeans, matching jeans, blue jeans. Let me tell you, he looked amazing. After a few pleasantries, he told us that he was there on holiday. He said, okay, can you call me? Literally this high school kid. Because if you don't, I'm going to come looking for you. Takes out a piece of paper, writes it down. This man, 2 weeks later, at the Jamhuri estate at my home, I saw his mother and 2 other women come to my home, introduce themselves, and said, our son has sent us here. They are interested, you know how we talk in Kikuyu, that to be adopted, like in the real. That man never stopped haunting me. When I finally went to America and he was in New York, never stopped haunting me. That's how I ended up in New York. And later on, I met the love of my life. His name is Thomas Protano. He's really my kindred spirit. Because when I lost my daughter, who I'm sure we are going to talk about as we discuss the next topic, if it wasn't for him, I swear I would have died. He's been there. We've been together. We met 32 years ago. We've been married for 27. He's my best friend, my closest, my right to die, my everything. I mean, next to my children, he's the best thing that ever happened to me. Let's put it that way. I like to really put it there because he holds me up so beautifully. I adore that man. I had my first child, as a matter of fact, before I was 20. My first entanglement, and honestly, that's what I like to, I don't say it to be funny. It was an entanglement because I was too young. I don't call it marriage because it wasn't necessarily a marriage. It was an experience that, and that's why it's so important. You don't have children with anybody before you know who you are having children with. That being said, I don't regret having my first 2 children. Now, he never wanted them to learn Kikuyu. He never. He said, where are they going to speak Kikuyu? When we go back to Kenya, if we're there, they're going to go to school, British school or American school. Never. I was young, and he was very controlling, and I had no say. So really, I did not teach my first children. But what I did is that I think I taught by example. My daughter can tell you, Wanjiru, whenever I was not going to school, I was not in the library, I was not math. Let me tell you, especially when I had like a weekend, like maybe cleaning up or whatever, I played all Kamaru songs. And other Wagatonye is another one, Kikuyu. So I still do it today. I stream all Kikuyu, well, not all, but many Kikuyu, or vernacular, Swahili, whatever, to keep my Kikuyu and Swahili sharp. And my children would tell you, I would make igima and sukuma wiki. You know, food is also culture, as you know. You know, music is culture. And I would, of course, take them to museums like the Museum of Natural History, what they could not get with my Kikuyu African. I would also emphasize the African-American stuff, you know. In the books also I bought were by African-American writers often. So those are little subtle things, and I'm telling you, I see them in my kids, whether they can speak Kikuyu or Swahili fluently or not. I can understand quite a bit now that she's been here, but she's shy about speaking because she's kind of shy. But also when your children are in school throughout with kids who don't speak the language, it's hard really to teach. But I don't make an excuse because I could have made maybe more effort. But I did. With the little one, who is Wanjiru, I really used to, on our way to school, I'll say, Wanjiru, wadieko? Where are you going? Dadie sukuru. Wanjiru, coming back up, picking her up. Oimako, nyuma thukuru. Wadhieko, dadie mushi. Omako, nyuma mushi. I used to stand her up there and say, Juire, Goto, Mato, Inyuro, Kanua, Numero, Woko, Moko, Kogoro. She knew all that stuff. I taught her how to count 1 through 20 in Kikuyu and Swahili. I have taught her some maxims that she actually knows how to spell them. Shumagayuru dinagie. They fall from heaven haft. Mwanaweki odagaga mudabia. A hard-working child does not, miss one. Does not miss one to wash him. Lack one to wash him, meaning to care for him. He who refuses to listen or being advised will have nothing to say when the coroner comes telling him this way and that. So I speak in maxims. Even today, I'll tell her something. And then even when I'm writing her from America, I'll text her something and put a Kikuyu maxim. Then I would tell her what it means, and I'll ask her next time. Some of them she remembers, some of them she doesn't. But I can tell you, she can spell better in Kikuyu than some of the people born and raised here in their 40s and 50s. I actually got this quote from my husband when we were eulogizing my beautiful, beloved, late daughter, Jerry. He said, we were inducted into a club that we never asked to be inducted into. So I didn't choose this journey. This tragic journey chose me. When our beloved Jerry, I believe it was 2000, was diagnosed with bipolar, we had never heard of the word or the disease. We never knew what we were doing. We never knew what that was. And it came suddenly. I remember where we were. We were living at this place called Mamaroneck. And my daughter said she was hearing voices in the hallway, and she started running from the house because she wanted to run away from the voices, but they wouldn't leave her. And we didn't know what we were dealing with. We didn't know how serious it was. Very soon she was diagnosed with bipolar, again, which we had no idea what it was. They say that if you live to be 30 with bipolar, it is actually the most survivable mental illness. But if it is not treated, you will not. You will eventually commit suicide. It's a horrible, horrible, insidious disease. Schizophrenia is even worse. But bipolar, if treated, lithium is what they advocate. Here is the problem. The drugs used to treat any kind of mental illness make people, before the doctors can find the right dosage, it's very difficult because it can make the patient very, they're non-functional. This causes a lot of patients to stop taking the medication. Because one of the symptoms of bipolar is cycling. It's called cycling between moods. One time you are up there with the stars. You can do anything. You feel invincible. You can move this building. You go for hours and hours and hours without sleep because the energy is insane. It's a chemical, of course, mental chemical imbalance. Then what happens? You crash. As you crash, then you go to the depths of depression, and that's when people usually take their lives because they can't move, they can't do anything. The mind is going 1,000%. They can't control anything. It's a horrendous, insidious disease that I wouldn't. I remember my beautiful girl. She was a very small, tiny girl, very sweet, sweet, sweet. I remember one time we were sitting at the table, and she said to me, "Mommy, It still makes me upset. Mommy, I'm not a bad person. Why am I suffering so much? I told her, honey, you're not a bad person at all. As a mother, you want to take all her pain and all that suffering and transfer it to yourself, but you can't. I watched my daughter suffer horribly. She was so brilliant and sweet and happy and funny. She was well. We had so much fun. She and Wanjiru used to play. She used to be very small. People used to think she was 15 when she was in her 20s. They never thought she was in college. She could have been a better writer than I could ever have been. Since third grade, she could talk. She would before she could learn how to spell. She wrote stories. One of them she called The Sense of Waikiki, like she had been to Hawaii. She was so smart. She used to suck her thumb, and every time she would come from school, throughout elementary, she would come from school and say, I don't want to eat. Go straight to the room and start writing. Say, what are you writing? Stories. She would write her story. Jerry, my baby. So she suffered quite a bit. We had no idea what was going on because we were alone with my husband struggling. The biological father did everything. That's why I don't like even to talk about him, to interfere with us helping her. We didn't want anybody to know that she is suffering from mental illness, so she wouldn't take any. He lived in the city. He would have her. She would not take her medication. We would insist she takes her medication. So we were not necessarily her friends, but with my husband, she wanted not to take medication. But whenever she was cycling, she had an episode. We are the only ones who had. One day, actually, the man who contributed to her birth called me from here because he used to travel here for business all the time and goes, by the way, can you ask, he always called her your daughter, not his daughter or our daughter. Can you find out what is going on with your daughter? She's talking about killing herself. So, yeah, when I tell you I love my husband, Thomas Brutano, this man, we used to go and camp outside my daughter's apartment, waiting to see where she is, whether she was alive. He struggled with me. He sabotaged all our efforts, and finally, my daughter, suicide claimed her life. So anyway, I vowed to my daughter and to all people who struggle with mental illness and suicide, I would do everything from there onwards to make sure her suffering and death will never be in vain. So that's where my journey started, and it was something eventually I called Jerry's Food Soldiers. Because I wanted us. Actually was supposed to start a place for people who suffer from, and that's what I was going to call it.
Catch more African stories in the next episode of Legally Clueless. I hope you're inspired by Waithĩra's story, part 1 of it. Part 2 is going to be very interesting because she actually shares a bit of poetry from the book she wrote for her daughter. Yeah, it's quite moving. I can't wait for you to listen to that. That's coming up next week. And she also shares the incredible mental health awareness work that she's doing. Isn't it so interesting? This is one of the things I connected with. It's so interesting how the things that almost kill you in terms of life's challenges actually end up being the things that push you towards your passion, your purpose even, and what's inspiring things that you can do for others. Isn't it so interesting? Because when I think about even just this podcast, leaving my job, grieving my mom, all of these things that I thought were sent to just break me actually helped me build this community. And so after you listen to this episode, I want to hear from you in the comments, wherever you're listening to this episode on. What is that challenge you navigated or are navigating that you know is leading you to your passion or your purpose and is going to help you inspire others? Because I just find it so interesting when I look back on my life. The things that when I was going through them, I was like, well, this is my end. This is my end. Actually helped me birth things that inspire others. I'll also put my divorce there. These are things that while I was navigating, I thought, Kwisha Mimi, I am done. But instead, they've pushed me closer to my purpose. So what is that thing for you? I want to get to know you a bit, so drop me a comment. And as always, thank you so much for listening to this episode and for being part of this family. I appreciate you, and I believe you have everything it takes to heal. That's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.